The grand hall of the Galactic Imperial Council gleamed with golden light. Tall windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the purple-tinged sky of the Empire's capital world. Around the circular table, representatives from 100 conquered worlds sat in their assigned places, their attention fixed on the holographic display in the center. "Another primitive species," declared High Commander Stone, his voice filled with boredom. The hologram showed a blue-green planet, the third from its yellow star. They've just achieved faster-than-light travel. Standard procedure suggests immediate integration into the Empire. Marcus Thompson, the junior human diplomat who had been studying the Empire's ways for the past year, stood up from his observer's seat. His heart beat faster, but his voice remained steady. "High Commander, if I may speak." The alien leaders turned to look at him, some with 4 eyes, others with none at all, but all wearing the same expression of mild annoyance at the interruption. "You may speak, Observer Thompson," Stone said, his scaled fingers tapping on the table. "That planet is Earth, my homeworld," Marcus said, straightening his back. "And I must warn you, attempting to force our integration would be a grave mistake." Laughter echoed through the chamber, the kind of laughter that had been heard 100 times before, when other species had tried to resist the Empire's expansion. "Your concern is noted," said Stone, "but unnecessary. Our scans show your military technology is at least 3 generations behind the Imperial standard. Your ships are slow, your weapons primitive. This will be a peaceful integration, or a very short war." Marcus took a deep breath. "You're not understanding me, High Commander. I'm not worried about Earth. I'm worried about the Empire." He gestured to the hologram. "Our history spans thousands of years of warfare. We fought ourselves more than you've fought other species. Every major advancement in human history came from our drive to become better at winning conflicts. All species have wars," dismissed one of the council members, waving a tentacled arm. "Not like us," Marcus insisted. "We turned our entire planet into a battlefield. Twice. We developed weapons that could destroy civilizations in seconds. When we weren't fighting wars, we were preparing for them. And when we looked to the stars, do you know what we saw?" The council members stared at him, their amusement fading at the intensity in his voice. "We saw potential battlefields. For the past 50 years, since we first detected alien signals, we've been preparing. Every piece of technology we've developed has a military application. Those slow ships you detected, they're not our real fleet. Those primitive weapons, they're not what we're capable of." High Commander Stone leaned forward. "Are you threatening the Empire, Observer Thompson?" "No, sir. I'm trying to save it." Marcus looked around the room. "You see a primitive species ready for conquest. I see a civilization that has spent its entire existence learning how to fight. You see an easy victory. I see my people finally having a chance to use everything they've prepared for." "Enough." Stone slammed his hand on the table. "This discussion is over. The integration fleet will launch tomorrow. Standard protocol will be followed." He turned to his advisors. "Send the demand for surrender as soon as the fleet enters their solar system." Marcus lowered his head. "Then I have failed in my mission to prevent bloodshed." He walked toward the chamber's exit, but paused at the door. "Remember this moment, High Commander. Remember that we tried to warn you." The doors closed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving the council to their planning. They discussed deployment strategies and victory celebrations, never once considering that the quiet human diplomat might have been telling the truth. In his quarters, Marcus sent a single encrypted message to Earth. They wouldn't listen. "The Empire comes. They know nothing about us. They think we're primitive. They think we're weak." The response came quickly. "Understood. Battle Plan Phoenix is now active. Come home, Marcus. The Empire is about to learn why humanity survived its own violent history." As his ship broke orbit that night, Marcus watched the Imperial fleet preparing for departure. They looked magnificent, their ships gleaming with power and technology. But he knew what they didn't. They were flying toward a species that had turned warfare into an art form and survival into a science. The war was about to begin, and humanity was ready. The Imperial fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system in a flash of blue light. 50 massive warships, each carrying enough firepower to level a continent, moved steadily toward Earth. On their command ship, Admiral Green of the Empire smiled as he watched the tactical display. This would be his 100th successful integration. A routine mission. In Earth's orbital command station, Admiral James Reeves stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the approaching fleet. The station's crew worked quietly at their stations, years of training evident in their calm efficiency. They entered scanner range, sir, reported Officer Tom Wilson. Their weapons are powered but not charged. Reed nodded. Open a channel. Let's see if they've reconsidered since dismissing Marcus's warning. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Green's alien face. His scaled skin reflected the light of his bridge, and his 4 eyes blinked in sequence. People of Earth, Green announced, his universal translator converting his words. You stand in the presence of the Galactic Empire. Your planet has been chosen for integration. Surrender your military forces and accept Imperial rule within the next 24 hours. Resistance will not be tolerated. Reed stepped forward. His voice was steady, almost kind. This is Admiral James Reed of the Earth Defense Force. We received word from our diplomat about your intentions. I am required by our laws to give you one chance to retreat. Please, take it. Laughter erupted on the Imperial bridge. Green's secondary eyes narrowed in amusement. You dare to threaten the Empire. Our scans show your technology is primitive. Your ships are basic. Your weapons are ineffective. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Reed sighed and pressed a button on his command console. A simple text message appeared on the Imperial screens. Run. You had your chance, Reed said quietly. All stations, initiate Defense Protocol Alpha. They chose to learn the hard way. Green's face twisted in anger. If you insist on resistance, then we will. His voice cut off as the transmission ended. Their first strike force is launching, sir, reported Wilson. 300 fighter craft approaching. They're targeting our orbital platforms. Reed allowed himself a small smile. Active magnetic shields. Deploy the Fireflies. Across Earth's orbit, seemingly harmless satellites suddenly came to life. The Imperial fighters approached what they thought were primitive defense platforms. They didn't expect the platforms to generate magnetic fields strong enough to tear their ships apart. Sir, an Imperial officer shouted, their defensive platforms are using some kind of magnetic weapon. We've lost 40% of our fighter force. Before Green could respond, small dots appeared on his tactical display. Thousands of them, each barely larger than a human fighter craft. The Fireflies are away, Wilson announced on Earth's command station. All units reporting ready. The tiny ship swarmed toward the Imperial fleet. Green watched with amusement. They think they can hurt our capital ships with those toys. Our shields are. His words died as the first wave of Fireflies struck. They weren't ships at all. They were automated drones carrying quantum-linked warheads. The Empire's shields were designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles. They weren't prepared for weapons that simply ignored the laws of physics. 3 Imperial capital ships erupted in flames before they could respond. The rest of the fleet scrambled to adjust their shields, but it was already too late. Second wave incoming, Wilson reported calmly. The stealth fleet is in position. Green stared in horror as new contacts appeared behind his fleet. Ships that hadn't been there seconds ago decloaked and opened fire. Earth vessels, supposedly primitive, were cutting through his fleet's defenses like they weren't even there. Impossible, Green shouted. Their technology was supposed to be inferior. The scans showed what we wanted them to show. Reed's voice came through on all Imperial channels. We've been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Everything you saw was a deception. This is your last warning. Run. The Imperial fleet lost 3 more capital ships in the next few minutes. Their formation, perfect for fighting conventional battles, made them easy targets for Earth's unconventional warfare. "Full retreat," Green ordered, his voice shaking. "Back to the jump point. Send word to the Empire. These humans, they're not primitive at all. They're demons." As the Imperial fleet fled in disarray, Reed watched from his command station. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "Phase 1 complete. The Empire took the bait. Begin Phase 2. The real war starts now." Behind him, the crew continued their work, their calm efficiency never wavering. This was what humanity had trained for. This was what they did best. The Empire had started this war. Humanity would finish it. 3 days after their humiliating retreat, the Imperial fleet regrouped at their nearest military base. The massive space station orbiting a red giant star buzzed with activity as engineers rushed to repair damaged ships. In the main strategy room, Admiral Green faced the harsh questions of his superiors through a holographic call. "How did this happen?" demanded High Commander Stone, his scaled face dark with anger. "You lost 6 capital ships to a primitive species." "Sir, they tricked us," Green replied, his voice tight. "Everything we knew about their technology was wrong. They showed us what they wanted us to see." On Earth's military command center, deep under the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Reed studied the latest intelligence reports. Holographic displays showed the movements of Imperial ships across nearby star systems. "They're bringing in their heavy fleet," said Jack Miller, Earth's head of intelligence. A gruff man with gray hair, he pointed to several large clusters of red dots moving through space. 300 capital ships. They think overwhelming force will solve their problem. Reed nodded. "Just as we expected. Inform all command posts. Operation Ghost begins now." Across the solar system, Earth's true military strength emerged from hiding. Bases on Mars, Jupiter's moons, and even in the Kuiper Belt powered up their defense systems. Hundreds of ships, hidden by technology the Empire didn't know existed, prepared for battle. In deep space, Commander Bill Hayes led a small fleet of Earth's newest stealth ships toward Imperial supply lines. "All ships, maintain radio silence," he ordered. "Remember your training. Hit hard, hit fast, then vanish." The Empire's supply ships never saw them coming. 20 cargo vessels, carrying fuel and ammunition for the Imperial fleet, disappeared in a series of precise strikes. No distress calls were sent. No warnings given. "Supply Fleet 7 has gone dark," reported an Imperial officer at their base. "We've lost contact with Supply Fleets 3 and 12 as well." Green felt a chill run down his spine. "How?" "Our sensors show nothing in those sectors." Back on Earth, Reed received the reports of the successful raids. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "Show them what else we can do." Deep in Earth's quantum research labs, Dr. Anna West activated the device they'd kept secret for a decade. "QED network is online," she reported. "All ships now have instant communication. Across space, Earth's forces could now coordinate their attacks instantly without any delay." The Empire's carefully planned formations meant nothing against an enemy that could react and adapt in real time. The Imperial heavy fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system 2 days later. Green stood on his new flagship, confidence restored by the overwhelming force at his command. "Launch the attack," he ordered. "Show these humans the true power of the Empire." The massive fleet moved forward, weapons charged, only to find themselves fighting shadows. Earth's ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking from impossible angles, their weapons bypassing shields that had protected Imperial ships for centuries. "Sir," shouted an Imperial tactical officer, "their ships, they're using some kind of quantum technology. Our targeting systems can't lock on." Green watched in horror as his mighty fleet was slowly picked apart. Earth's forces weren't fighting like any species they'd encountered before. They didn't follow proper military doctrine. They didn't maintain formation. Each ship seemed to fight independently, yet somehow coordinated perfectly with the others. How are they doing this? He demanded. No species fights like this. On his command ship, Hayes smiled as he watched another Imperial vessel fall to his fleet's attacks. Send the message, he ordered. Across all Imperial frequencies, a simple video began playing. It showed scenes from Earth's military history, ancient battles, modern wars, and everything in between. The message was clear. Humans had been perfecting the art of warfare for their entire existence. In Earth's command center, Reed received word of the Empire's mounting losses. They made their first mistake when they thought we were primitive, he said quietly. Their second mistake was thinking we would fight like them. The Imperial fleet retreated once again, leaving behind dozens of destroyed ships. They had arrived expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had found an enemy that had turned warfare into a science, deception into an art, and unpredictability into a weapon. The Empire was learning, but the lesson was costly. Humanity wasn't just ready for war. They had been born for it. Commander Lisa Parker crouched in the shadow of an asteroid, her small attack ship powered down to avoid detection. 5 other ships from her squadron were similarly hidden across the asteroid field. Through the viewport, she watched an Imperial supply convoy approaching their position. Remember, she whispered into her comm, though there was no need to whisper in space, we hit them just like we practiced. Fast and hard. Don't give them time to call for help. The Imperial ships moved slowly through space, their crews confident in their safety. This sector was far from the front lines, deep in Imperial territory. No enemy would dare attack here. They were wrong. Now, Parker ordered. 6 human ships burst from their hiding places, engines flaring to life. Before the Imperial crews could react, the small Earth vessels were among them, weapons firing with surgical precision. Aim for their engines and communication arrays, Parker commanded. Don't let them send a distress signal. The attack was over in less than 3 minutes. 7 Imperial supply ships drifted powerless in space, their crews trapped but alive. As planned, no distress calls had been sent. Good work, Ghost Squadron, Parker said, allowing herself a small smile. Let's disappear before their patrol ships arrive. Back at the Imperial capital, High Commander Stone slammed his fist on the table. How are they doing this? He demanded. How are these primitives striking everywhere at once? His intelligence officer displayed a map showing recent attacks. Red dots appeared across Imperial space. Supply lines cut, communication relays destroyed, small outposts silenced. Each dot represented another successful human raid. They're not fighting like a proper military force, the officer explained. Their ships operate in small groups, striking targets of opportunity. When we send forces to defend one area, they attack another. They're using. He paused, checking his translator. Something called guerrilla warfare. In Earth's mobile command ship, hidden in the rings of Saturn, Admiral Reed reviewed Parker's latest success report. How many supply lines have we cut now? He asked his staff. 37 major routes, replied Officer Tom Wilson. The Empire is having to divert significant forces to protect their logistics. Their war effort is slowing down. Reed nodded. This was how humanity had always fought against superior forces, not through direct confrontation, but by targeting weaknesses, disrupting supply lines, and striking where the enemy least expected. Deep in Imperial space, Parker's squadron approached their next target, a fuel processing station. Her ships had been operating independently for weeks, their quantum communication system allowing them to coordinate with Earth while remaining undetected. Their patrols are getting better, her second-in-command noted. They're learning. Not fast enough, Parker replied. Begin attack pattern Delta. The human ships split up, each approaching the station from a different angle. The Imperial defenders had learned to watch for small attack groups, but they hadn't figured out how to defend against attacks coming from 6 directions at once. The station's defenses fell quickly. As her team planted explosive charges on the fuel tanks, Parker broadcast a short message on Imperial frequencies. "We warned you to run." Hours later, when Imperial reinforcements arrived, they found only debris and another human message carved into a piece of floating metal. "Anywhere, anytime." In the Imperial Council chamber, reports of the attacks brought chaos. "These humans," one counselor said, "they don't fight like warriors. They fight like humans." Marcus Thompson's voice came from a recorded message playing in the center of the room. "We tried to warn you. Every human knows the stories of how small forces defeated larger ones. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the American Revolution, the Afghan resistance. We learned from every war, every battle, every fight for survival." Stone watched the message with growing dread. The Empire had expected to fight a conventional war against a primitive species. Instead, they were facing an enemy that turned their own territory against them, that struck from shadows, that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Send word to all commands," Stone ordered. "Double all patrols. Protect every supply line. Find these human raiders." But he knew, as did every Imperial commander, that they were fighting an enemy unlike any they'd faced before. The humans didn't just know how to fight. They knew how to hunt. And the Empire was their prey. The Imperial capital buzzed with activity as thousands of warships gathered in high orbit. The Empire had finally had enough. After weeks of humiliating defeats and guerrilla attacks, High Commander Stone had called in the main fleet. Over 500 capital ships, the largest force assembled in the past 100 years. "This ends now," Stone declared to his gathered commanders. "No more clever tricks. No more hit-and-run attacks. We will crush these humans with pure force." The massive fleet moved through space in perfect formation, their golden hulls gleaming in the starlight. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they could destroy entire worlds. On Earth, Admiral Reed watched the approaching armada on his command screen. Unlike previous encounters, the humans made no attempt to hide their presence. Earth's orbital platforms glowed with power, and their fleet waited in plain sight. "They're frustrated," Reed observed to his staff. "They've abandoned subtlety for brute force." "Just as predicted," said Dr. Anna West, now head of Earth's Combat Ag Division. "Their response falls within expected parameters. Should we initiate the Athena Protocol?" Reed nodded. "Let's show them why fighting smart beats fighting hard." As the Imperial fleet approached Earth's orbit, they maintained their tight, disciplined formation. The same formation they'd used to conquer 100 worlds. It had never failed them before. It was about to become their greatest weakness. "All ships, activate Athena," Reed commanded. Across Earth's fleet, artificial intelligence systems came online. These weren't simple computers. They were the result of 50 years of secret development, designed specifically for space warfare. Each eye could analyze and react to combat situations 1,000 times faster than any organic being. The Imperial fleet launched their first strike, a massive wave of energy weapons fire that lit up space like a new sun. They expected to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer firepower. Instead, every human ship moved in perfect coordination, their paths calculated by the Athena network. What looked like chaos to Imperial commanders was actually a precisely choreographed dance, with each movement predicted and planned microseconds in advance. "Impossible," Stone shouted as he watched his initial strike miss completely. No fleet can coordinate movements that precisely. But the humans were just getting started. Earth's ships split into smaller groups, each acting independently yet somehow maintaining perfect tactical coordination. They slipped between the gaps in the Imperial formation, turning the enemy's greatest strength, their tight organization, into a fatal weakness. "Sir," an Imperial officer called out, his voice shaking. "Their ships. They're predicting our moves before we make them." The Empire's carefully planned formations dissolved into chaos as human vessels struck from all angles. The AIs calculated every possible move, every response, turning the battle into a grand game of chess where they could see 20 moves ahead. "Our ships can't get a target lock," another officer reported. "It's like they know where we're going to shoot before we do." Reed watched as the mighty Imperial fleet began to break apart. The Empire had expected a straight fight, ship against ship. Instead, they found themselves in a battle where every human vessel seemed to have impossible knowledge of their plans. Athena reports 60% of their fleet is now combat ineffective, Dr. West announced. Their formation is completely broken. The Empire attempted to regroup, to reform their lines, but the human ships were everywhere, striking with precision that no organic crew could match. Ships that had conquered countless worlds found themselves unable to land a single hit on their nimble opponents. Stone watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically torn apart by an enemy that seemed to break every rule of space combat. "Fall back," he finally ordered. "All ships, emergency retreat." As the Imperial fleet fled in disorder, Reed sent one final message. "We tried to tell you. Humans don't play by your rules. We make our own." The battle for Earth's solar system was over, but the war was about to enter a new phase. The Empire had learned a costly lesson. It wasn't enough to have the biggest fleet or the most powerful weapons. Against humans, you needed something more. You needed to outthink them. And the Empire was learning that might be impossible. Dr. West looked at the battle analysis on her screen. "They still haven't figured it out, have they?" she asked Reed. "No," he replied with a grim smile. "They still think Athena is our secret weapon. They haven't realized it's just the beginning." In the aftermath of their devastating defeat at Earth, the Imperial Council gathered for an emergency session. The mood was grim as High Commander Stone presented the casualty figures. 300 ships lost, thousands of crew members dead or missing. "Their AI technology is impressive," Stone admitted, "but we can adapt. We can." And Abe burst into the chamber, his scales pale with fear. "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy signature approaching the capital. It's a human ship." On the bridge of the Earth-ship Phoenix, General Robert Wilson stood calmly as his vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Unlike the sleek warships they'd used before, the Phoenix was massive, nearly twice the size of the largest Imperial vessel. "Send the message," Wilson ordered. Across every Imperial communication channel, screens lit up with Wilson's face. "People of the Empire, this is General Robert Wilson of Earth. We gave you chances to retreat. We showed you our strength. Now, we'll show you why we were so confident from the start." In the Imperial Council chamber, Stone watched as the massive human ship approached. "Launch all defensive squadrons. Raise the planetary shields." "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "you need to see these readings from the human ship." The data made Stone's blood run cold. Power signatures unlike anything they'd ever seen before pulsed from the Phoenix's hull. Energy readings that shouldn't be possible. "By the ancestors," Stone whispered, "what have they built?" Wilson's voice continued, "What you're detecting is humanity's true advantage. While you conquered through brute force, we learned to harness the power of the atom, then antimatter, then something even more powerful. Project Phoenix isn't just a ship, it's the culmination of 50 years of preparation for this moment." The Phoenix's outer hull began to glow with a strange purple light. Sensors across the Imperial capital went crazy, detecting energy levels that broke all known laws of physics. "One ship," Stone scoffed, trying to maintain his confidence. "One ship cannot defeat an empire." "Watch us," Wilson replied. The Phoenix released a small probe toward an uninhabited moon orbiting the capital planet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the moon simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not broken apart. It vanished, converted entirely into pure energy. Silence fell across the Imperial capital. "That," Wilson explained calmly, "was 1% of our ship's power. Project Phoenix can convert matter directly into energy, controlled and directed. Your shields, your armor, your weapons, they mean nothing against this. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Reed watched the transmission with Dr. West. They needed to know, he said quietly. They needed to understand why we weren't afraid of their numbers. Stone stared at the spot where the moon had been, his mind struggling to comprehend what he'd just witnessed. How? He demanded. How did you develop this technology? Because we had to, Wilson answered. Because 50 years ago, when we first detected alien signals, we knew that sooner or later we would face a hostile species. Every nation on Earth united with one goal: survival. While you saw our public space program, our real work happened in secret. The Phoenix's hull pulsed again, the purple glow intensifying. You have 1 hour to begin surrender negotiations, Wilson stated. If you refuse, we will demonstrate this weapon on a larger target. And unlike you, we don't make empty threats. In the council chamber, Stone looked at his fellow leaders. For the first time in Imperial history, they faced an enemy that could not only match their power but exceed it. How many ships like this do they have? One counselor asked fearfully. Does it matter? Stone replied. One is enough. Across Imperial space, news of the Phoenix spread rapidly. Colony worlds began declaring neutrality. Subject species started demanding independence. The mighty empire, built on military supremacy, faced the possibility of collapse. On the Phoenix, Wilson received word that the empire was ready to negotiate. Send word to Earth, he ordered. Phase 6 complete. The empire has learned the hardest lesson of all. Never push humans into a corner. We don't just fight back, we revolutionize warfare itself. As Imperial diplomats prepared for surrender talks, Wilson looked out at the stars. Humanity had kept their greatest weapon secret until the perfect moment, proving that true power wasn't just about strength. It was about knowing when and how to use it. The Empire had started this war thinking they were invincible. Now they knew better. Much better. 1 month after Project Phoenix's revelation, the Grand Hall of the Imperial Council looked very different. Where once only Imperial leaders sat, now representatives from Earth joined them at the massive table. The peace negotiations were entering their final day. High Commander Stone, his once proud posture now humbled, faced Admiral Reed across the table. Your terms are harsh, he said, reviewing the document before him. They're fair, Reed replied firmly. Considering what we could demand with our technology, they're actually quite generous. Marcus Thompson, the human diplomat who had tried to warn them at the start, stood to read the final terms. The Empire will recognize Earth and all human colonies as a sovereign, independent nation. All technology sharing will be voluntary, not forced. The Empire will pay reparations for their unprovoked attack, and most importantly, the Imperial Council will be reformed to include representatives from all species, not just the Empire. Stone looked at the other council members, seeing resignation in their faces. The mighty Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, was being forced to change by a species they had dismissed as primitive just months ago. The Project Phoenix weapon, one counselor spoke up. Will you share its secrets? Admiral Reed shook his head. That technology stays with Earth. Consider it our insurance policy. In Earth's orbital command station, General Wilson watched the negotiations through a secure feed. Beside him, Dr. West analyzed data from their campaign against the Empire. Final casualty reports are in, she reported. Thanks to our AI systems and advanced planning, we lost only 12 ships and 87 personnel. The Empire lost over half their fleet. Wilson nodded solemnly. The lowest casualty ratio in military history. A victory that Sun Tzu would have been proud of. Winning without fighting whenever possible. Across the galaxy, news of the peace terms spread rapidly. Dozens of species that had been conquered by the Empire began seeking alliances with Earth. They had watched in awe as humans dismantled the Imperial war machine through superior strategy, technology, and sheer determination. Back in the council chamber, Stone finally spoke the words he never thought he'd say. We accept your terms. The Empire surrenders. As the documents were signed, Marcus stepped forward again. "There's one more thing," he said. "A message from Earth's leaders to the galaxy." The chamber's holographic system activated, showing scenes from human history, not just wars, but also achievements in science, art, and exploration. "We didn't want this war," Marcus explained. "Humans dream of exploring the stars, making friends, trading knowledge. But we also prepare for the worst, because our history taught us to be ready. The Empire forced us to reveal our military strength. Now, we want to show you our other strengths." The images shifted to show Earth's medical technology, their environmental restoration projects, their advances in peaceful space exploration. "We offer friendship to any species that wants it," Marcus continued. "But remember Project Phoenix. Remember our AI warriors. Remember our guerrilla fleets. Because while we prefer peace, we will always be ready for war." Stone looked at the humans with new understanding. "You could have destroyed us completely," he realized. "Why didn't you?" Reed smiled. "Because that's not who we are. Humans fight hardest when defending themselves or others. We don't seek conquest. We seek progress, friendship, and peaceful cooperation. But we never, ever surrender our independence." As the ceremony concluded, news traveled across Earth and her colonies. Celebrations erupted in every city. Humanity had faced its first interstellar war and emerged victorious, not through brutality, but through preparation, innovation, and the careful application of force. In the following weeks, the galaxy began to change. The Empire transformed from a military dictatorship into a cooperative alliance of species. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. Former enemies became cautious friends. And at the center of it all stood humanity, respected, perhaps feared a little, but ultimately recognized as a species that had mastered both the art of war and the wisdom to avoid it when possible. Admiral Reed, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon from his office window, smiled as he read the latest reports. Diplomatic requests were pouring in from across the galaxy. Species that had never dared oppose the Empire now sought Earth's protection and friendship. "They finally understand," he said to himself. "We warned them to run, not because we were bloodthirsty, but because we knew that if pushed into war, we would win. That's what humans do. We survive. We adapt. We overcome. And then we help others do the same. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was a good thing."